Hey, everybody, welcome to River-City-Media. And guess who joined us all of a sudden right here?
I made it.
Better late than never.
Yes.
Hey, I'm just going to he got the memo to wear black tonight on the River-City-Media part there.
It's heck to work for a living. You got a college degree and you work for a living, and because you can't make as much money, so it makes you late.
Absolutely. So now River-City-Media is beyond the booth. We got a special edition of Coach Russell or Rusty. You like Rusty or Russell?
I'm grown up now, so I'm more Russell now.
So we got Coach Russell Jacoway, and the field's named Coach Russell Jacoway, right? Or the stadium?
Yes, right? Russell Jacoway Stadium. Yes.
We won't be formal on here. So we got Coach Russell Jacoway, and his quarterback from 1984 or something.
85. Yeah. 83, 84, and 85.
We won't let everybody know the actual. Keep everybody's age at a minimum amount.
I can call him Rusty because I've been around so long, so I don't have to say Russell.
That's awesome. But we got his quarterback for several years there that led the team to a state title, Lance Mackey. Guys, thanks for joining us. I told y'all before we went live, I'm going to ask a couple questions. I'm going to step away and let Phil do all this. And Coach, do you remember what you said when I said I was going to step away and let Phil talk? What was he going to do?
No, I forgot.
He's going to talk about the 84 year.
Yeah. I said Phil probably had us on here because he want to talk more about the 84 year when they beat us.
So, guys, thanks for joining us. Does it seem like it's been 40 years since y'all won a state title?
Yes. And some days it seems like it's not been long at all, but there's been a lot of water going to that bridge. It's been quite a while. That's why it's precious, I guess, because they're so rare.
Mm-hmm. Coach, What about you?
Well, yeah, I've always thought as a coach, that kind of marks you. You're a state championship coach. But then I also thought about I played on Coach Dobbins' state championship basketball team at Collinsville. And let me rephrase that. I was on the team at Collinsville. And I thought the world of L.D. Dobbins. But even now, when we have class reunions and things from our high school class, we talk about playing in the state finals, the state championship, win the championship. So as a player in Lance's place, that kind of marks you for your life. You're a state champion. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same thing with Phil. Phil can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, definitely so.
Nobody can take that away from you. How often and we kind of talked about before, but how often do you and the teams get together or the team get together and celebrate that 40 years?
We've probably done it roughly 10 years, every 10 years or so, I would imagine. And a lot of that group still lives in Sand Rock. I see them. Lance lives just right up through the four-way stop from me. And but several of that group is still around. And even the ones that aren't kind of keep in touch. And, that was as tight and knit a group as I've ever been around my life.
Lance, I still see a lot of the guys that I played with weekly. We're still friends today, and I can still contact them if I need something. And like I said, quite a few of them are still around Sand Rock. But if we wanted to get together, we could probably get on the phone and have 25 show up Saturday night because they don't mind getting together and telling lies.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, and I know kind of what y'all relate to because we had our 40th year reunion last year during the section game, first home game. We got it all organized and, honored some that have passed on. But, when everybody got together, it was kind of like a brotherhood. Back at the time, you were all friends and you were in battles together. Now, you don't care to tell each other you love each other now because, it's just that certain bond that you have. It's like you just picked up where you left off.
Yeah. This group, and I'll get emotional because they do easy as they get older. I coached 37 years, played in high school before that. This group was different than any group. And it's easy to say, but they really were. That bond with this group and the attitude they had was different than any group I've ever been around in my life.
Guys, I'll ask one more question, then I'm going to step behind the scenes and let y'all have it. Let the football guys have it. And we appreciate y'all coming on, sharing this with us. 40 years state championship, and I kind of curious about your championship rings. Do y'all wear them very often? Where are they at the moment?
There were no rings back in that day. At Sand Rock High School and the Sand Rock community back in that day, it was all they could do to get us to Repton and get us back. And we bought really. And with that being said, most high schools back in that day weren't doing rings. I didn't get one in high school and one state basketball at Collinsville. We bought really nice jackets for all the kids that year. And mine's still hanging in my closet. And probably every one of them just about is.
I got a ring, and I don't wear it very often because I can't get it on my hand anymore. But I know where it is. It's in the drawer at the house. So.
Coach, what's going on? You didn't get a ring, but the player did.
I didn't get a ring.
I can't believe you didn't know that. But yeah, we got rings. I got a ring.
Yeah, some of the kids got rings, but they did.
Yeah, it wasn't anything like the rings you see today. I mean, but it's just a nice little silver ring with a little garnet stone in it. It says state champion, and it's at home.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm going to turn you over to Mr. Harris. And Coach Lance, best of luck talking about the 85 team, because like y'all said, 84 is probably going to be brought up a lot more than 85. We'll just
we got him back number 2-1 tonight.
Yeah, got me 2-1. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's definitely true. Well, guys, Lance, you was talking about having a ring. We got rings too, but for the most part, our parents had to pay for them. It wasn't. Now today, your clubs will raise the money and for something like that. But I think they may have paid $25 of it, and we had to pay like $200. So, but we still got one. Mine stays in a drawer, and I'm sure you guys probably feel like I do. Is it was nice to win a state championship and all that was fun, but it don't define you as a person. So really, I don't ever wear mine. I mean, it's nice to talk about in public. And I'm sure when y'all hear guys talk, it kind of makes you feel good.
Yeah, it does. I'm the same way. I've got a state Hall of Fame ring at home, and it's big. It's kind of gaudy. I put it on my finger one time the night I was inducted. It's never been back on my finger again. It's just at home. And but that state championship with this group doesn't define you as a person, but it's like, and I'll say it over and over again, this was a special group of guys, unlike any group I ever coached.
Mm-hmm.
You could have taken this group of guys literally and said, guys, we're going to play the Falcons on Sunday. And they'd have been like, Coach, show us the film. Let's get ready to go. I mean, they wouldn't have batted an eye. They really would.
Well, I probably you felt about your team the way Jim Kirby felt about our team, in that he told me, later on, he goes, Phil, you guys just had it. He said, y'all had that mental toughness. He said, y'all had that togetherness. And he said, you can't coach that. He said, you just kind of sort of don't want to get in the way. Did you kind of feel that?
Yeah. I didn't have to worry about leadership. And I had some teams through the years where I had 2 or 3 good leaders. I had a whole football team full of leaders on this group. And, Lance was recognized as a leader because he was the quarterback. But there was a whole football team full of leaders. We didn't have to coach effort. That's what made this group so good. I never had to coach effort with this group. I just had to worry about the X's and O's and getting them off the bus. They were going to handle the being motivated part.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think that was kind of in the parallel we was too. But it's tough.
Well, if y'all hadn't been pretty tough, we'd have beat you in '84 too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But and I think y'all talk about that a lot. But y'all made us a better football team that night, because we figured out, we was smoking everybody that we played. Well, all of a sudden, Sand Rock stands up and gives us they got a big energy boost. I can remember Jeff Burke got hurt to get speak, and we didn't think he could go. Well, first time he run the football, knee gave way. Somebody hit him in the backfield, and then Sand Rock got a huge energy boost, and it lasted. They got after us, but it made us a better football team. Do y'all feel like, I know that helped y'all, but it also made us a better football team. Had we not went through what we went through that night, I don't know if we would have won those last 3 ball games.
Yeah, because I remember they were both close ball games.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you a story about that. I had a guy that played with me, and if you remember at the end of the game, we scored and went for 2 to try to win the game. And it's been 40 years. I had a guy that played that was a senior that year call me. I ran into him somewhere, and he said, I got a question for you. I want to know all these years. And I said, okay. He said, why didn't you run the dang ball on that 2-point conversion? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I just tried to throw it. It was a pass play. And I said, in hindsight, I wish I would have ran it. But, so it means a lot to people, more than you think. But he said, why didn't you run that ball on that 2-point conversion? I said, well, if I knew the answer to that, I'd know the answer to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Lance, that's what the buzz was. John Kirby and I are real close friends, and we talked about that forever. Why didn't Lance run the football? Because I can remember when y'all scored the touchdown to cut it to 1.
Mm-hmm. Coach,
y'all called timeout to run the 2-point conversion. Coach Kirby come out and he told us, he said, guys, they're going to run that same. And of course, whether it was or not, that same pick play. That's what Coach Kirby told us in the huddle. He said, they're going to run that same play. And of course, he'd tell me in situations like that, he's Phil, let them 3 rush the quarterback and you stay and watch just in case they run that middle screen. He said, Sand Rock ain't known for it, but, he always would have me do that. But when you rolled out of the pocket, I kind of rolled out with you because it was just me and you out there. Because I can remember looking up, I looked around, Jeff Harrison's fighting 2 guys at the goal line. And then you drift out to the right, and I'm like, he's going to blow by me like nothing. So I really didn't come towards you. I was like, if he comes running to the goal line, all I can do is guess because he's going to juke me out of my shoes. But when you raised that arm up to throw the football, I was like, thank God. It just went through my head. Thank God, because there was no way you was just going to go right by me because there was nobody out there really. And John and I have talked about that several times, that why didn't he run the football? But I guess it's one of those things that just wasn't meant to be. And I said, maybe though that happening made him a better football player where he made better decisions the next year. And that kind of thing wasn't going to happen. Do you feel that way?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I don't know. If you go back to that game, it never crossed my mind to run it. I don't reckon. I just thought, it's a pass play. I'm going to throw it, and that's what I did.
Well, when you look back, it had been so wide open on the touchdown. My regret was not calling the same play. My regret was not running the same play to the other side. I wish I just flopped it and ran it the other way for the 2-point conversion.
And that probably would, because that's what Coach Kirby told you. He said, Jeff, you fight through that pick and you fight your way to the outside because that's who they're going to throw it to. And so Jeff knew to do that. So, yeah. But, it's amazing how coaches, minds work in situations like that. They've seen so many things like that, that's automatically what Coach Kirby wanted to defend on that. Well, I want to turn back the clock a little bit. Because Coach Jacoway, you took over in 1983, same year Jim Kirby took over about here. 0-10 season the first year. What kind of went through your head during that season? Because I know when y'all played us, we weren't very good, but y'all kind of self-destructed. Did that happen a lot during that first year?
That first year, we were small. We only had 3 seniors. We were small. We were not very strong physically. We were just overmatched most nights out. But the thing about that group was they didn't quit all year long. They got better those first 2 years. We got better leading up to when we lost to y'all. We got so much better that first year and that second year. It's like we were getting better every ball game. And we went from being a really bad football team that 0-10 year to being reasonably competitive at the end of that year. And, I felt like success was going to come. I just wasn't sure I was going to get to be there to see it. And there was a lot of people wanting to be gone.
Hey, yeah, I mean, and that's understandable, going 0-10 that first year. But I mean, you don't know what you're going to inherit, where you're going to go. But yeah, I know year 2 and before first Spring Garden and Cedar Bluff the first 2 weeks of the season, then y'all came to us. And I know y'all were a lot better football team than what you showed that night, but we broke the opening. Jeff Burt broke about an 80-yard run right off the bat, and it seemed to kind of take the wind out of y'all's sail. And
that was the one night all year long that ball game that we didn't play well, and we did kind of self-destruct that night. We lost I lost my coach, and we just kind of lost it a little bit that night. And maybe that was the first time we had really been in that big of a ball game.
Yeah, because we were learning too, because we had just come off of a loss to 5. We knew we were pretty good, very experienced football team, but, we didn't really know how good we were. But, I also heard that after that game, y'all kind of had that's the year that we dressed in the Chevron station and the visiting team dressed in the fire hall, which is the city hall now. Y'all kind of had a come to Jesus meeting after that game, didn't you?
By the time we left the fire hall that night, Lance is sitting over here laughing. By the time we left the fire hall that night, and I realized some things about myself as a young coach that night. I was letting some things get away that I didn't need to let go, and which was some of it was discipline. And we had gotten several 15-yard penalties that night, and by the time we left that fire hall, they'd already turned the lights off. Everybody in the stadium had gone home. And but I remember the statement I made in the fire hall, and I didn't know if I'd lose some players or not. I said, all you guys that got unsportsmanlike penalties tonight, you owe me 10 laps around the football field Monday, and that's retro. I said, there's a new rule. If you get a 15-yard penalty unsportsmanlike, you owe me 10 laps around the football field, and that's retroactive to tonight. And nobody said a word, and the guys that got them ran them Monday. There was not a complaint, and we didn't have those problems the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So I learned some things about myself that night that I needed to change the way I was doing a few things.
I guess too, the players also saw a totally different focus in you too.
Yeah, I think so. But I know what Lance is fixing to say.
Well, we tasted a little bit of success, and we weren't used to that, and we took it for granted that you were going to be able to win, and then. It just sort of snowballed that game, but we did have some 15-yard penalties, and we had some rough characters.
Yeah, we did.
And this never happened before. We called a pass play, and the guy said, "Don't throw it to me." And I said, "What?" He said, "Don't throw it to me because I'm not going to catch it." And he just plowed right into the sidelines over there and got a 15-yard penalty and slapped the ball away like a volleyball, and I was like, "This is not good, not good." Didn't Pat must wreck that night away on off the ditch?
I think so. It was just a bad night all around.
Yeah.
We had our best defensive lineman hit John Kirby late early in the ball game. I kidded John about that all through the years, and I still ask him when I said, "Hey, John, did that hurt?" And he got kicked out of the ball game, and that hurt us that night. I mean, this was like first quarter.
Yeah, and one of the nicest guys.
Yeah.
You just out of character for him, but it just happened.
Just a little over anxious right there.
Well, and speaking of Coach Kirby, of course, you got to know John later on in years because there was a big fierce rivalry it become between you and Jim Kirby. Y'all didn't know each other that well. And when we saw you, you was always very fiery, very hot-headed, and so we didn't know you. You didn't know us. So it became a great rivalry through the 80s.
We later on became good friends, but those first 3 years, we were after each other's throats. We didn't really like each other. And but like I said, later on, I became good friends with him and his boys.
Yeah, and that continued on because you played against both of them when they were at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, when they were coaching, sure did. And we talked a lot, and I've run into them at college games before and things like that. We sat and talked, But, you know, there again, we didn't know each other to begin with, and we both wanted the same thing.
Well, Lance, I want to ask you about this. During that 84 season when y'all, made it to the playoffs, when did you feel like the team was starting to kind of sort of come together? I mean, after that, after the Valley Head game, y'all still went on and won a lot of football games and made it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think maybe after the Collinsville game, we lost 21-14 maybe down there, and it was a game that we felt like we could have won. And I think that maybe we really doubled down on our focus and decided, you know what, we can play better than this, and we can accomplish goals we set out to accomplish. So I think after that game, we didn't lose again until the state playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
well, of course, y'all won in the first round. I think y'all went to Masson Academy and won in the first round of the playoffs. And what was kind of thinking when you come into the game against Valley Head? Did y'all just kind of want to survive? Was it like, hey, let's get through the first quarter and see what happens? What was kind of the mindset going into that game?
we just sold out. I mean, I remember during practice, I played safety and everybody else played on the line of scrimmage on defense just to shut down the wishbone. And we were just like, we got nothing to lose. They've already beat us once. And so we just played free. We just let it go. We wasn't worried, and nobody expected us to win. And so we just started loose and played wide open.
And I'll tell you a little something we did that week. Coach Rowe and myself sat down that weekend with Coach Bobby Joe Johnson and Coach Beckett from Cherokee County High School and said, here's what we're facing, here's what to do. And Coach Beckett said, here's what we do when we play the wishbone. He said, especially if we think they're a little better than us. And he drew up some stuff. So defensively against Valley Head that night, we were not doing what we had done. Like Lance just said, we were not doing what we had done. It was totally different. And we were taking a chance. I mean, if y'all had thrown the football, it was there for the taking. We were daring. We were playing with one defensive back. This guy was the only guy back there. And we were playing with 10 people sailing out on the run. And we said, during the ball game, I looked at Coach Rowe and I said, if we pull this out, we're sending Coach Beckett and Coach Johnson roses on Monday.
Yeah. Well, it didn't take me long to figure out what y'all were doing, but it still gave us problems. Y'all totally took away the off tackle hole. Y'all just told us you are not going to run off tackle. Now, we had a little bit of success running wide, and really what I remember we hurt y'all with was the quick 30 with the fullback, and John run several quarterback sneaks because if we could get a hat on the linebacker, we could get 5, 6, 7 yards. But I can remember if y'all's tackle shaded the outside, he was stunting in, linebacker was going out. If the tackle was head up with me, he was going out and the linebacker was stunning in. And y'all stayed in that the entire game and never went away from it. But we couldn't run the ball off tackle.
Yeah, and didn't try to throw it. And, like I said, we were just kind of daring you to throw the football. And I kept telling Coach Ross, they're going to throw it sooner or later. And he was like, well, until they do, we're going to sit right here. And so,
but it was a great game plan because, and I'm wondering if that night was really where y'all found out how good y'all were defensively, because the next year y'all were solid. I mean, really and truly, that Sand Rock team in 85 was good. But my Lord, defensively, I saw the Mount Hope game and the Carrollton game. And they were athletic football teams, but they could sustain absolutely nothing. And y'all didn't give them anything either.
Mm-hmm. I think we gave up double figures one time that whole year, which is unreal. Especially in today's game, you would never hear that.
I thought Westminster got 9. I think that's a high.
I thought they got 10. Some reason I thought we gave up double figures one time, but it was an unreal number that you would never see nowadays. Froze up here.
Sorry about that. Michael was muted. look like Phil's froze up, so I'll step in for a couple of minutes and
Okay.
see. You know, I can't. Let's see. The world of technology, you gotta love it. Talking about that team only giving up possibly 9-10 points. Uh, what do you contribute that to? As far as I know, the players had a lot to do with it, but some of the play calling, some of the other stuff that took place.
Defensively, okay. Let me explain this football team to you a little bit. They were not terribly big. We were pretty good size up front. Linebackers were pretty good. They could run. Defensively, we put 11 people on the field that could run really well. This guy right here was an all-state quarterback. If he hadn't played quarterback, he'd been an all-state defensive back. And so that was the kind of people we played with on defense. I mean, they just flat got after you.
Right.
And people talk about putting speed on the field today against spread teams. We had speed on the field in 1985 that could run you down from sideline to sideline. And even when we played the athletic teams, they might have been a hair faster than us, but we were just enough to be in the ballpark and probably a little more disciplined than a lot of them.
Right.
You know, a lot of times offense is about execution, but defense is about desire, you know, and just wanting to be there and make the play. And we had good pursuit. We had people, you know, run to the ball. And I thought it was interesting. I went to a game not too long ago at Sand Rock, and one of the guys came up to me and said, "What's the quarterback doing playing defense?" And I said, "I play defense all the time." And I said, it's a two-way school. He should play defense if he's one of your best 11. But for a long time, you know, we had quarterbacks that didn't have to play defense. We had plenty of other folks.
Yeah,
but
for a long time, I had enough numbers that my quarterback didn't play defense. But Lance played every snap on defense.
Well, that's going to be my next question. Lance, what did you play on the defense?
I played left corner. Played safety as a junior, and then I played cornerback as a senior.
Okay. Which did you let me ask real quick before I turn it back over to the field. What did you prefer playing, offense or defense?
I
can answer that. He just liked to play football.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed both. I like hitting people. I mean, I really did. I know a couple of times I missed on tackling at some of our defensive linemen, and they're like, "Man, that hurt. Don't hit me in the back no more." I was like, "I'm going to hit somebody." Yeah.
Coach, what did you prefer him to play, offense or defense?
I preferred him to play offense because he was a big top. It's funny. Everybody talks now about the dual threat quarterback like it's a new thing, you know. And I watch these people running off tackle, and then the quarterback runs to the edge. That was our offense in 1985. I guess we were ahead of the curve. I don't know. Out of the eye, we would run off tackle till your nose bled. And by the time everybody was taking it away, Lance put it on his hip and ran it to the edge. And so Lance was a dual threat quarterback before anybody knew what the word dual threat quarterback was.
One more question. I'll turn it back over the field. Back in '85, when you won the state title, well, anytime back in then, how was you able to scout the teams that you was playing or ready to play?
Yeah, well, we swapped films back then. We didn't play anybody that we didn't have film on. And it was just a different way. Now they send it digitally after the ball game on Friday night to each other. And back then we met, you know, during the season. I would meet the other coach on a Saturday morning and swap films. And then when you get in the playoffs, you had to go to Montgomery every week and you were required to swap film then.
Oh, okay. Phil, take it away, buddy.
Okay. Well, I wanted to go back to, you know, before we got started, actually get started on the 85 season. But at the end of 84, after you lost the Valley Head game, what was the mindset in the off season? Lance, what was the mindset going into 85?
I think that we could accomplish a lot more than we really thought we could. I think when we lost 18 games in a row. And, you know, when you get to that point, and you're beat down, you know, having a little bit of success just ignites you to have more. And I think after that, we realized, you know, Valley Head went on to win the state championship, and we're like, you know, we're not that far off, you know, from being there. And we had a good group of seniors that left that year, but we had a lot of younger guys coming in, to fill those spots behind them. So I think we realized if we worked hard, we could accomplish, more than what we originally planned.
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of understand, we played Collinsville my junior year, and we had lost to Spring Garden the 2 weeks prior, and they beat Spring Garden like 48-0. But for whatever reason, we stayed with them, had them 6-0 at halftime. They beat us on a 4th down and goal, 9 pass, a 4th and goal from the 9 pass, and beat us 7-6. They went on to the semifinals. And I think that moment turned us around to finish up the rest of that season, and then led to that, being, hey, we're pretty good in 84. And I think that's kind of the same thing y'all were. Hey, we're a good football team. I mean, we just stood toe to toe with somebody that's been successful. We're a pretty good football team.
Well, 2 things that happened. Number one, if y'all don't win the state championship in 84, I'm not sure we win it in 85. When y'all won it in 84, that convinced our kids that, hey, we're right there. We're that close. And then the other thing, back in that day, a lot of people didn't really have a winter program. That was not a thing back then. We did. And that group of guys committed themselves to the weight room that winter. And by springtime, we had a lot of guys that looked a lot different than they did the year before. We were talking about kids that had put on a lot of weight and a huge difference in the strength level over the course of that winter, from Lance's junior year even to Lance's senior year.
Yeah, definitely. And that pays off because, you think about it, Coach, when you're not used to it, and we weren't used to it either. A 15-game season is long. It's grueling. Yeah. It's tough. You got to be mentally and physically tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still remember how dumb I am, I reckon. Things that a coach wouldn't dare do now. We're getting ready to go to Repton, and I remember it like it's yesterday. It's Wednesday night, and we're going to go to Repton and play for the state championship, game 15, long schedule. We're going to ride a bus for 5 or 6 hours on Friday all the way to Repton to play. And we had about a 2-hour scrimmage. We finished up coming off the field under the lights. I'm talking about full contact scrimmage. And these guys never batted out. That's just the way they were used to practicing.
Yeah, that's amazing stories like that. I mean, you're just ready, for that kind of, that kind of environment. Well, Coach, it's something that, I don't know if you really talk about this or a lot, but it's something I always noticed in you as a coach. And people would ask, like, why is Sand Rock successful? I said, I'm going to tell you something that they do that other teams don't do, that I see them win a lot of football games. And that was a huge –
He's going to say throw the football. That's what he's going to say.
Go ahead and answer that since you know what.
Okay, I can answer because he was going to say, because you throw the football. We were, and I had this talk with my wife last week. Oddly enough, we were talking about it at supper table. I said, I was at Sand Rock, this little country school on Lookout Mountain. And for 37 years, or 32 years, almost every year, I was blessed with quarterbacks that could throw the football. We had guys that could throw the football every year. It started off with Lance in a time when nobody threw the football. And we were throwing it 10, 15 times a ball game. And back then, that
was radical. It was like, y'all throw it all the time. I was like, we throw 12 passes a game.
Yeah, but back then, you would look at other people's stats, especially 1A, 2A schools, 2 out of 5. When you looked at them on Saturday mornings, 3 out of 6 if they were getting beat bad. We were throwing it 12, 15 times every Friday night. And it was a big advantage. Lance will tell you, Cedar Bluff almost beat us in the regular season. Mm-hmm. We beat them in overtime. And we have to play them again in the playoffs in round 2, I think. Mm-hmm. And everybody said, oh, well, they're going to get you. Cedar Bluff was really good in 85. Mm-hmm. Everybody said, well, they're going to get you this time. And we just kind of let it air out that night and found out something. They couldn't defense the pass. And we beat them a couple of touchdowns the second time around because we could throw the football. And that served us well all year long because everybody played just straight cover 3 back then. You didn't see man, you didn't see cover 2, you didn't see all that stuff you see nowadays. And there again, I had Lance that could throw it and was real smart with the football, didn't turn it over. And we had some guys that could catch the football. And we had Jeff Whaley, who was about a 4-5 guy that could really run and go catch the football.
Yeah.
It loosens up for your running game. I'm the same way now, but back then, if you threw it 15 times, they're backing their linebackers up a little bit and defensive backs, and it opens up your running game even more. So, yeah, it was considered radical.
Phil, Coach is a prognosticator, so he knew what the rest of your question was as far as passing the ball, so he was answering it.
No, what I was going to ask you about was special teams. You used to put a lot of emphasis on special teams, and you won a lot of football because I saw y'all play a great deal of times. Y'all won a lot of football games setting yourself up with covering kicks and doing things like that other teams didn't work on.
Coach Rowe used to tell me, he said, I've never seen anybody work on special teams as much as you do. And I feel like I still do to this day, especially small high school, 1A, 2A, 3A. If you're good special teams, you can get a huge advantage. And it drives me crazy to see some of the mistakes that people make. I went out to Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago. We made the trip out to the Auburn, Oklahoma game. And I'm sitting there watching the guy field a punt, going into the end zone on his own one. And I'm like, that's coaching. That's high school coaching. You don't do that. And late in my career, we got to the point I had a staff that was very veteran. Jeff Norris, who had been my defensive coordinator for 20-something years, I didn't worry about it. He would handle that. Stephen Chestnut handled a lot of our offense. Nobody ever coached. Nobody. I was my own special teams coordinator. And so I was going to dictate how much time got put into special teams. But when Lance played, we had Jeff Whaley that could punt the football. We go to West End your junior year. Every film we'd look at, they had blocked a punt. And I told Jeff that week, I said, one step and just get it away. I think he punted for a 40-yard average that night, kept them backed up all night long. Tommy Steele was our place kicker. And, he was like Mr. Reliable. If we could get him around the 30-yard, he was old-fashioned, straight on. We get around the 30-yard line, he was a threat. And I'm not sure we missed an extra point all year. And so, I put a lot of emphasis on special teams.
I saw a guy the other night, I think it was Florida State Miami's fair catch or punt inside the 5, and I told Stacy, I said, look at that.
Yeah.
Stacy, my wife, I said, can you believe that guy caught that? Fair caught it inside the 5. She was like, what's the big deal? But, that's things you don't fair catch inside the 10.
Yeah.
Well, everybody used to talk about put your heels on the 10-yard line and you have to step back and let the ball go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that's what I always heard.
I watched Auburn the first ball game against Boa this year. Could not line up. They got 2 penalties for illegal formation punting the football. And I'm like, really? We've been practicing for how long and we can't line up in a legal formation to punt the football? Just it's stuff like that drives me crazy. And
high school games I go to, I went to one, and I was like, just line up straight and kick the extra point. There's so many of you see that I've seen a lot of 12-yard punts and just stuff that just drives you crazy.
Yeah.
If you're really watching, you're like, they need to get it back to the sticks on the punt, But
so special teams was a big thing at Sand Rock when I was there.
Looked like he froze up again. Guys, I want y'all.
We have answered the passing question and we've answered the special teams question.
We know what the next question is going to be. We'll go ahead and talk about it.
Go ahead. That'll be fine. I'm trying to send him the link to his phone where he can hop on that way. So, next question would be, passing, special teams, defense. We were talking about defense a little bit earlier. What type of defense did you run back then?
Next question is going to be numbers. I think when we won the state championship, the senior class, Lance's class, best I can remember, there were only 3 guys in the senior class that didn't play football. And that was a big advantage to us. After year one, we had a lot of kids come out to play football at Sand Rock, and that carried on through all the way through the end of my career. And the interest in football was just so big. And I loved playing early in the year because we were in shape and we knew we could outnumber most everybody.
I think we had 11 seniors. When I was a senior,
which was a big group at a 1A school back then.
I sent him the link on his phone, so I think he's fixing to hop on through his phone. So, but yeah, 11 seniors back then at a 1A school. Even today, that's huge.
I mean,
we had 45 players on the team in the 1A
That's
school.
what I was fixing to say. I think the year we won the state championship, we were around 45 players.
And is that legit 9 through 12?
Yeah.
Yes, that was 9 through 12. I only dressed one 8th grader the whole time I was at Sand Rock, and that was late in my career, Riley Norris, who played basketball at Alabama, and he punted for us as an 8th grader, and he was just such an exceptional athlete that we brought him on up. He was 6'5" in the 8th grade, and we brought him on up, and he punted for us as an 8th grader. And outside of that, everybody we dressed were 9 through 12.
In today's age, and y'all been to games in the last couple of years, you're having to dress out everybody just to have a sideline right now.
Yeah, it's
a lot more things to do today than there was in 1985.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot more sports. I mean, Sand Rock has cross country, and they have, a lot of schools have soccer and different things like that. That kids participate in, and so it cuts into your numbers.
And you don't get as many kids willing to play multiple sports now as you used to. Everybody wants to specialize.
Yeah,
which I hate.
Well, you kind of took the question right away from it. I was going to ask both of you, what did y'all feel about multiple sports teams or multiple player teams?
Well, at a small school especially, you've got to have your athletes play every sport, I think.
Right.
And we played probably most of our backs and receivers played basketball and ran track, and that was the only other sports we had at the time. But it was encouraged.
Yeah, a lot of that group that won state championship, Lance was one of them. We went on Friday night, game 15, and they're on the basketball court practicing on Monday, starting basketball season. And as soon as that was over in the spring, we didn't have about 3 or 4 coaches at Sand Rock back then. And so Coach Rowe and Coach Hendon and myself coached football. Coach Rowe coached basketball, and I was his JV coach. And then we turned around and we both coached track in the spring. And so we coached the same kids just about all year long because it was the same guys playing everything.
Yeah. Go ahead, Phil.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about the 85 season. I want y'all to go through it, give us a summary. I know the game against Cedar Bluff, y'all won in overtime, but go through the whole season because I want to reflect back and let y'all talk about, games that really stood out.
Games that stood out.
Yeah.
West End was one that stood out to me.
They were good.
Played down there, and it was rainy. But it was one of those nights after the game, I was completely spent. And we ended up, I intercepted a pass and run it back close to the goal line, and we scored and give us our second score. We ended up beating 14-6.
Yes, 14-6.
But they were a 2A state playoff team, and it was the last game of the year. It finished a perfect regular season. It was, to me, it was one of the big games because it was just, I was physically exhausted, after the game. It was just a physical game. But Cedar Bluff, second round of playoffs at Cedar Bluff. They're the only team I remember, they got the second half kickoff and they drove down the field and scored on our first string defense. And, we turned right around and got it back and went back and scored. And that was a statement, I think. And it was a huge game. They were a very good team. And
you could not have fit another person in that stadium that night.
Yeah.
If there's ever been a ball game in Cherokee County where the whole county showed up for the ball game, it was the Cedar Bluff Sand Rock rematch. They were 5 deep on the fence 2 hours before the game started.
Yeah. Of course,
And I'll say this,
Yeah.
and I'll say this with him sitting here. Lance Mackey had a great ball game at quarterback that night, because we touched on this earlier. I had been very conservative the first time we played Cedar Bluff, and we squeaked it out in overtime. And we kind of knew we had to open it up a little bit in game 2 in the playoffs. And we did. And a little bit of a thing we had done that year, we got in the power eye a lot and put one of our defensive tackles, Tommy Steele, at halfback. And we always ran off tackle. There he is wearing number 70-something. So we line up in the playoff game against him. There's Tommy Steele at halfback wearing number 70-something. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. We run a little fake the off tackle play, and they're all on the line of scrimmage because they got the lineman in the backfield. They're going to run the football. And Lance hits Dewayne Hurd about 20 yards down the field on their sidelines, and they're pitching the fifth that it's not a legal play because we had a number 70 in the backfield, but he didn't go downfield. So it was a legal play. And I still remember that play, though, because it's the first time we had done it all year. And But that game stood out. I'm like Lance, the same games. West End was a big ball game. Collinsville was a big ball game just because Sand Rock had not had a lot of success against Collinsville. Well, I guess what I'd say continual success. They had won some games, and we beat them 51-0. And
Great. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, 51.
No, Coach, you're right. According to the stats that I've got pulled up, Collinsville was 51-0.
All right.
Lance is getting a little old and senile.
I dreamed it.
But I remember this. We're warming up, and our starting tailback, Jim Tom Stimson, was 135 pounds soaking wet, 5'5". And their people are leaning over the fence and laughing at us. We're going to kill him. We're going to kill him. The first play, he breaks it like 60 yards. They tackle us on about the 10. We don't score.
We kicked a field goal.
We kicked a field goal.
That's what it
right
was.
There.
Yeah.
We stop them. We get the ball back. He breaks the next one 60 yards for a touchdown. He's got 120 yards rushing on 2 carries. And that just kind of opened the floodgates the rest of the night there. And that was a big win. I was from Collinsville. That was a big win personally for me. But it established Sand Rock in that rivalry for several years thereafter. We dominated that rivalry for probably the next 12 years.
Well,
Guys, let me go through the schedule real quick before we get going. That way, maybe it'll refresh some Spectre Lance's memory.
Okay. He's getting a lot. Like I said, he's getting a lot.
Spring Garden.
Yeah, because one of them, y'all beat Valley Head, I think 49-6. That had to be satisfying in that you probably knew you probably going to win that football game, but you needed to get that one under your belt.
We did, and Coach Kirby had done some things offensively that I struggled with, and what was satisfying me that night was we shut those things down. I mean, he did some – I can't go back and tell you exactly what. I can't draw it up, but there was 2 or 3 things he did that had frustrated me through the years that y'all did that we had trouble stopping. And we were able to shut it probably with just better players, really. But we were able to shut those things down and like I said, get a big win.
Okay, here's the schedule. It's at Spring Garden, 38-8.
Yeah, 38.
At Cedar Bluff, 7-6 overtime. Versus Valley Head, 49-6. Versus White Plains, 35-0. At Galesville, 42-8. Versus Donahoe, 14-3. Madison Academy, 21-0. Versus Collinsville, 51-0.
Back up. Okay, Lance won't remember this. We're at Donahoe. I got to tell this story. We're at Donahoe, private school. Okay, and this is going to be kind of ugly, but I'm trying to motivate my kids. You know, they've got a lot of kids that have got money and that kind of thing. And before the game, I said, "All right, guys," I said, "just how many of y'all's parents are doctors and lawyers?" And Lance just is dry, looks up. He says, because his mother worked at the phone company. He said, "My mother's an operator."
Nobody knows what that is anymore.
Nobody knows what an operator is anymore. But I still remember him telling that. It was hilarious. And it stuck in my mind all these years. Just everybody's real quiet. I said, I said, you know, because our kids were farm guys. Their parents worked at Goodyear in the steel plant. Just good old middle class, hardworking people. And so I'm trying to motivate our kids. I said, how many of y'all's parents are doctors and lawyers? And I said, my mom was an operator. Just that dry. And that just broke everybody up for a ball game.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hey, to tell you, to share a kind of story in that, I remember when I first moved down ahead of my 10th grade year, our English teacher was in the class and she was asking, she goes, is there anybody in our class that's from up north? And I said, I am. And she goes, are you? She said, where are you from? I said, Chattanooga. So, that kind of broke out. Of course, everybody died, of course.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I just couldn't help but be a smart aleck at that time.
Madison Academy 21-0. What classification was Madison Academy back then?
They were 1A. We played them in the playoffs. They were not very good. Story about that, when we go up there, they don't even have enough people in the bleachers to get a chain crew. We had to get our chain crew out of the bleachers. And you think about Madison Academy today.
Yeah.
Back then it was totally different. We had to get I still remember we had to get our chain crew to carry the chains at Madison Academy because they couldn't get anybody to do it.
Wow.
They're, on their football field, it dropped off on one side and the fence was right next to the goal line.
Yeah, back
we
then
played over there. We played over there my junior year. Yeah, that what Madison Academy is now and what it was then is totally different.
Oh yeah.
I'll finish it up real quick. Versus Collinsville 51-0. Westminster 26-9. At West End, Walnut Grove 14-0. That's regular season.
Yeah.
Going into the playoff, it's Speak 34-0. At Cedar Bluff 21-7. Versus Mount Hope 17-0.
Mount Hope was as talented a football team as we saw that year. And Lance's daddy, Mr. Bud Mackey, came out to the field house. He was president of our booster club. He came out on Thursday night, and I was out there by myself. I would let everybody get gone on Thursday night, and I would pack the ball bags and everything. I didn't want anybody to bother me. I wanted to make sure everything was right. And I told him, I said, Bud, I think this may be it for us. And he said, well, if it is, we've had a great year. And we played lights out against Mount Hope. We really did.
Carrollton in the semifinals, 17-0, and of course the finals. Huh?
It was pouring down rain.
And then Repton was 14-6. So basically, what it says here is y'all was 400 points to 53. So y'all gave up 53 points in that whole season.
Yeah. We were good on offense. We were great on defense, just to be honest. And like you asked a little while ago, Phil, for a 1A school, we were great on special teams because especially back then, that was something that people just tried to do enough to get by on special teams. And we tried to make things happen on special teams.
Well, during the playoffs, that showed because I saw the Mount Hope game and I saw the Carrollton game, and that's the kind of thing that stood out to me is, how far superior y'all were on the special teams part of things. Yeah, Mount Hope was explosive, could have probably broken a play at any time, but they never had good field position, never really sustained anything. Y'all kept them on the run solidly, most of that game. I can remember that. I want to talk about the Repton game. Really and truly, as most folks looked at it, y'all were the underdog in that game. They had a real good tailback, real good defensive tackle. And y'all really had to play well defensively to win that one because that was a tough trip on the road.
Yeah, it was. And there again, this guy right here had a great ball game at night, throwing the football and running the football. Completed, I remember a couple of third down passes, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Completed a couple passes that dug us out of a hole. Lance can tell a bit more what his memories are of that ball game.
I threw an interception. I remember that.
Yeah.
They fumbled it. They intercepted it and fumbled it when they was returning it, and we gained 20 yards. So it turned out all right. But, yeah, it was a long ride, and it was a tough physical game. There was a huge crowd there. I remember running through the line before the game, and it went from goal line to goal line. And, it was just it was a big for our community, I think it was very big.
That was a credit to Sand Rock. We went all the way below Montgomery to South Alabama, and we had as many people there as they did. I mean, we had there couldn't have been anybody left in Sand Rock that night.
Yeah. Of course, that's the way you want it, at those times. Because I can remember when we went over to Brilliant, it was like that. We had a ton of people that went. That's a long haul over there. Of course, we were fortunate, got to play the last two at home, getting the state championship. Golly damn, it was cold that night. But
yeah, I was there. I remember that one.
God, it was miserable.
Just a few years ago, I ran into Tommy Dukes at an all-star volleyball game. Sand Rock had a girl playing, and he asked saw a girl with Sand Rock coat on. He said, "Is that old coach still at Sand Rock?" She said, "Yeah." She brought him up in the bleachers. Tommy Dukes was this big defensive tackle that went on and played college basketball, about 6'7", 6'8". He sat down up there with me that night. We talked. Nice guy. He's actually an administrator down in that school district now, Evergreen, and went on to a really good career in education. And he said, "Coach," he said, "I'll have to be honest. We looked at film. We didn't think there was any way y'all could beat us." And I said, "Well, Tommy, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but we looked at film. We didn't think there was any way y'all could beat us." Mm-hmm. And so, we were just as sure of it as they were.
Yeah. Hey, I understand. When you get to that point, I mean, I can remember one time Coach Kirby after we came from behind in the fourth quarter and beat y'all. Because I remember Coach King come over and come on the bus and gave a speech about, because we played very well in the fourth quarter. Of course, most of the time when we would take the lead like we did in the game against y'all, it was over with. The other team was ready to go home. But the one thing y'all did, y'all kept fighting and come right back down the field and kind of sort of caught us on our heels, and that just didn't happen against us. So that, that was a tribute to y'all also. But Coach Kirby made the statement. He said, this team can't be beat, and sure enough, we eked them out and found a way. But, sometimes you just, I don't know. I think you just kind of get that chip on your shoulder and just feel like you can't be beat. Is that kind of the way y'all felt?
I felt as a player, if we scored twice, it was over. Uh-huh. When we got the second score, I didn't feel like anybody could score twice on us. Once you might think, well, there could be a fluky play or a fumble or something like that. But when we scored twice, I kind of took an exhale because I felt like we were in pretty good shape. And nowadays, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, now, I think that was that way for us too. Now, when Bert was healthy, we had that guaranteed 60, 70, 80-yard run somewhere coming. But when he went out, he wasn't healthy during the playoffs, so we had to pick up our level of play on defense. So, Lance, I think we were the same way. If we get two scores up on somebody, they was not going to sustain two drives on us.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and people didn't throw the ball around back then. So, a two-score lead meant more then than it does now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It does. It really meant a lot. And that's back in the day. And you look back too. If you beat somebody 21-0, you whip the snot out of them.
Yeah, that was a big score. I look at score. Well, you had that 100-0 game a couple of weeks ago in Alabama, but you see 3 or 4 teams every Friday night now that score 70 points in high school football. Yeah. It's unreal.
It took us half a year to score that.
Well, yeah. Back in our day, if you scored 30, that was a blowout. And so when we beat Collinsville that year, when we scored 51-0 on Collinsville that year, that was considered it was just a huge score.
Well, something I want to talk about the book that y'all had done, Fire on the Mountain. I'd heard about it and I finally got to read it. And, it gave credit to, what Valley Head did was it, kind of sort of helped Sand Rock in the 85 season. And, and everything I read in that book was so true to form. I mean, I just was amazed at how well it was done because everything that was in the book was everything that I remembered. So, anybody that hasn't ever read that story, and of course, I know Coach Jacoway, you still got books available, but it's just an amazing story to read.
Yeah. Scott Wright, oddly enough, this is what's crazy about that book. I get a phone call from Scott Wright, who is now the editor of the Cherokee Herald, and he says, hey, I want to do a book. Well, Scott Wright was the quarterback at Cedar Bluff that we beat in the playoffs, the regular season, the playoffs. And he wrote a book about Westlake and some things. He said, I want to write a book about the state championship team. And so that was about a year in the making. He would come and do interviews with the coaches, talk to Lance, several of the kids, and I say kids, men. And that thing went on for about a year when he finally, got it published and ready to sell. And we had a good time with that because it brought back a lot of memories.
Yeah, definitely so. And it's well done. I really enjoyed reading it. And I'm an outsider, but Coach, and being in the media as long as I have, I love stories like this, like spending some time with y'all. Yeah, I was on the opposite sideline, but still, I went to 2 of the ball games. So I really enjoyed watching y'all play because y'all were very good. I mean, y'all were a very good football team.
Well, the thing, and I guess that book brought out though, Sand Rock had not had a history of sustained success through the years. Coach Lowry, who I've always told him I appreciate him a lot, that preceded me there. And he had some success and took him to the first time that Sand Rock had ever been in the playoffs. And but then this group came along and they started something that was sustained for several years. Now, we never reached what they did again, but they set the precedent for some success in Sand Rock that went on for several years.
Yeah, because that's like you go from 0-10 in '83 to 15-0 in '85. That is just unheard of. I mean, everything has to fall into place. And it's just amazing to go from that to what y'all went to in '85 as good as y'all were. Well, Lance, I want to ask you about this. Of course, I want y'all to kind of talk about some of the guys on the team because if some of them are listening, I'm sure they would like to hear their names. But I want to know, Lance, I know you and Coach have probably been close over the years. What was it like playing for him? Did you enjoy it? Was it trying? Yeah.
So he could be
I want to know what it was like to play for Coach.
Yeah, it was he had a lot of things that he did that were cutting edge at the time, like throwing the ball 15 times a game. And the weight room stuff that we did and things like that. And things I'd never thought about. We sat down and we wrote, like, he would ask us what our goals for the season were for individual and for, a team. And it's just something that never really, crossed our mind. That had never been, you just didn't do that. Coaches just didn't ask players what they thought. I mean, you just went out and did what they said and went on. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. I mean, we worked hard, but it was an enjoyable time to me. I always enjoyed practice. One of the saddest things was riding home the bus after the state championship game because we realized we weren't going to play anymore. And it was time to move on to something else. But it was a kind of a somber ride home.
That's a strange thing what he just said, and I felt the same way. And Coach Rowe did too, and so did Coach Hendon. We had worked up to that point and had so much fun. I had so much fun out of this group that it was almost a letdown on the way home that, well, dang, it's over. We don't get to play together anymore. And, that was a tough thing to face at that time because, they say we're a family, but we really were. There was a love there among everybody. You didn't say it back in that day, but there was.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, I mean, you say it today. I mean, that we talk about it still. And I know exactly what you're thinking of, what y'all are talking about, because our championship game was at Valley Head. Everybody flooded the field. There was pictures took, neck hugs. I mean, all this stuff going on. And then for about 20 minutes, and you want it to last a lifetime. And then all of a sudden it settles down. Okay. Mm-hmm. I grab my helmet and start walking back toward the locker room. I look up at the scoreboard and I see that 13-6, and I go, this is it for me. I'm fixing to walk in that locker room and take my shoulder pads off for the last time. We can't go any further. This is it. This is all. It's great to win a state championship, but why can't there be more? But it was kind of sombering there just to walk, and I just kept looking at that scoreboard and thinking, this is it for me. And it was the last time I took my shoulder pads off, and I hadn't even thought about it. Now, we had thought about it during hey, this is our last practice. This is our second to last practice.
Yeah.
We talked about things like that, but then it hits home, and it's kind of saddening in a way.
Well, you can't go out any better than winning the last game. That's what my boys played. And I said, everybody plays the last game at some point in time. And it's sad when you do, but, when you go out with a championship, that's the pinnacle. That's all you can do.
Well, I want you guys to mention some of the guys that played on that team and their importance to the football team.
Well, there was a ton of them. I'll say this before we get into the names, because we may leave somebody out. Everybody on that football team, we talked about dressing 45 kids on a 1A football team, contributed in some manner. And we played a lot of people. We didn't play anybody that started both ways on special teams. We had enough bodies that we could fill in, cover kicks and things like that. And I think that was a big advantage. So there may be names that we don't call them that nobody said, boy, I thought I was contributing. Everybody on that roster was a contributor to that state championship. It was, in practice, we had come to Jesus scrimmages every week in practice, and our scout teams would fight us back. And so that was a team of a lot of guys. Everybody knows who Lance Mackey is. Dewayne Boyd played fullback. Kind of a big fullback back in that days. He gave us an inside threat. Jim Tom Stimson, who looked like a midget, but was as quick as a hiccup. And I had a guy tell me after Jack Oliver graduated the year before, he said, y'all won't be as good in 85 because you just don't have a tailback. And, we kind of proved that wrong. And we rotated him and Scotty Norris in there. Scotty was kind of our short yardage guy. And Lance can correct me if I'm wrong. Craig Twilley, Jeff Whaley played what we kind of a combination wingback, flanker position. We used Craig a lot as a wingback. We used Jeff as our deep threat wideout guy. He ended up being an all-state wideout. Dwayne Hurd, and I look back, it's kind of funny the way we played then. Artie Mackey played the two ends, and they were like, we didn't flop them. We played two tight ends. There they were all night long. If we split them out, we split them out from tight end, still in the 3-point stance. And, then Dan Andrews had a tackle.
Mark Parker and Chris St. Clair, Blake
Robertson,
Ricky Snyder, and Tommy Steele played defensive tackle. David Rollins is defensive end, and trying to think if there's any other people that were you call starters or whatever. But most everybody played two ways. Mark Parker and played linebacker and guard, and you always hate to mention, because you're afraid you'll leave somebody out, but this special group all the way around.
We had the odd thing there. We had 11 seniors on the football team, and the way it fit, Lyndon Tidwell was another senior.
Mm-hmm.
The last series against Repton, we're kneeling on the football, and we were able to put all 11 seniors on the field.
Yeah. Hey, that's a great way to end it. I want to tell you, it's one of your favorite formations. One of my favorite football play is when you're victory formation and you take that knee. That's y'all's favorite play. I love that play. I'll talk anytime that, whoever's playing. Here goes my favorite play because, I just love that play because, that signifies, hey, we've done this.
Yeah. And, we just kept having people step up all year long. I remember we go to Gales and I am worried to death because Clayton Robinson has broken a wrist. And back then you couldn't play with a cast on. Now they let you pat it up and play. He scrimmaged but couldn't play in the game. He was scrimmaging practice all week with that cast on, but he wasn't legal to play in the games because he had a cast on his hand. And so we take sophomore Mark Clanton's having to play center. and I'm scared to death. And we never missed a beat all night long. Just things like that where we were able to people kept stepping up, and we were very lucky injury-wise that year. We really were, especially with when I look back the way we practiced and as physical as we were. Nobody nowadays would do the things in practice we did back then.
Was there times when you would kind of sort of was a little unsure about things, were players getting complacent, maybe a little overconfident? Did you have discussions with individuals a little bit every once in a while just to kind of sort of assure yourself?
Probably every year except that year. Probably every year the rest of my career. I had to be careful about players feeling good about themselves and, getting complacent. I'm not sure I ever really went off that year because we just didn't play good in the ball game. Because our effort was pretty consistent for 15 years. And that's why I said this was such a special group, because I screamed and hollered because I was just young and full of fire. Mostly it's officials, and a lot of that I'm ashamed of nowadays. But as far as having to just scream at them and get on to motivate them, I really didn't have to a whole lot. I probably did more than I really needed to, because they were as self-motivated group as I've ever been around.
Yeah, I can remember in the days a couple of times watching you on the sideline getting in an official's ear, and he'd throw the flags so high up there it'd bring rain a lot of times. So
I never got. One thing I am proud of, I knew when to shut up. For 32 years, I never got kicked out of a ball game.
Yeah.
And if I got one, I was going to shut up then. And we were about ahead one night, and we didn't think we were getting a good called ball game. And I said something to the official, and I got a flag. And we were going out to check on the injured player, and I said something to an official, and I got flagged. And Coach Rowe comes out behind me, and he says something to the official, and he gets flagged. And Coach Rowe's comment was crazy. He said, "Well, I wouldn't have said anything if I'd known he was double barrel." And they marked off. They walked off 30 yards against us on one play. And,
Jamie Pitts started at guard. I knew we'd forget somebody. Yeah. He was the offensive lineman for us.
Jamie Pitts was another guy. Played guard, 140 pounds, maybe 145. Probably could have played running back. Maybe he was quick as all get out, could run. But we won with people like that playing as offensive linemen, playing up front for us.
Yeah. Well, before I let y'all go, I wanted you to talk about a couple of things. What are some of the memories y'all had, like outside of football, like locker room stories or something that happened on a road trip or something?
He'll know more about that stuff than he probably knows more about stuff that he may still not be tell.
Okay.
I remember Ricky Snyder, who was a defensive lineman, got a bull on his rear end. And Artie Mackey was a linebacker, and he was really excited. Every time he'd go up to blitz, he'd slap old Ricky on the rear end right on that bull. And we watched the film the next Monday, and he'd hit Ricky, and Ricky'd stand up. He'd go right back down to his stance, and he'd rewind it. Coach would. He'd slap him again. He'd go right back up, back down, up, down. It was so funny.
And
Ricky'd be like, "Quit hitting me! I told you."
We kept a lot of stuff like that live, Artie. We had breakdancing was a big thing back then. Had a kid named Dewayne Boyd who could do it, and it wasn't nothing in the middle of practice for him to break out and just start dancing in the middle of practice. We just stopped watching for a minute or two, and some of the old men felt like we weren't serious enough in practice. And I said, "Look, guys, we're getting it done. We may not be pretty enough for you, but we're getting it done at practice." But we had a good time with stuff all year long. We had there was a lot of guys on that group that liked to tell jokes and laugh and have a good time.
Clayton Robertson was the center. We had a little play. If I wanted to run the quarterback sneak, I could just pinch him. And I came up there one night, and the linebacker shifted over, and I pinched him, and he went, "Ouch, that hurts!" and just screamed. I started laughing right during the middle of the game, and I was like, "You're not supposed to tell anybody that I pinched you, Clayton." But it was a lot of fun to be around those guys.
I remember a TV station coming out and doing an interview.
Yeah.
And it had Lance, it had Dewayne Boyd, 2 or 3 of the seniors on there. And this was on deep in the playoffs. And the guy doing the interview says, "Well, we're here in Sand Rock, Alabama. And Dewayne Boyd just out in the middle of the interview, he says, no, you're not. This is not Sand Rock. And I remember where he told the guy he was. But I mean, he just, just threw it in the middle of the interview. This is a high school kid just ad-libbing. Never been on TV before, but they're just joking around with the guy.
Yeah, was off the field. Well, y'all were a very loose team. I know we were. Coach Kirby used to get on to us a lot of times because we kind of played a lot. I mean, played a whole awful lot. But when the lights came on and you walked inside that white line, it was all business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Off the field, they probably had a lot of fun, and I was always worried about how much fun they were having. Because there again, I wasn't that much older than those guys. I wasn't 27 years old, and and I was uptight. And back then, football was on my mind 24/7, especially that year. And I was very focused all year that year. And I almost didn't want to let them go home from practice because at practice we could have a good time, but I could control it and keep an eye on it. And I couldn't control what went on away from the field. But I will say this, and Lance may know different. He may not want to say. But from everything I've heard, that group, even off the field, for those 15 weeks, football was a big priority for that group.
Mm-hmm.
They were not going to go do something just downright dumb.
Yeah, we still had a lot of fun, pranks, jokes, whatnot. Yeah, I can remember one time Coach Kirby come out before we played Geraldine. It's homecoming, and we had clinched the area championship. And we'd never been in this position before. And he come out and he said, "Phil, I want to ask you a question." He said, "I'm worried." And I said, "Why is that, Coach?" He goes, "Y'all have never been in this position before." He said, "Y'all won the area championship. We're going to the playoffs." He goes, "I'm worried about if things are going to get stale," because we still had like 3 ball players and was fixing to play Geraldine. I said, "Coach, I don't think you have any worries." I said, "Once we walk out on that field," I said, "it's all business." And I said, "I don't think any of us is going to have any kind of a letdown." Well, we beat them 55-0. And Coach Kirby caught me after the ball, and he says, "Well," he goes, "you're right. I'm not going to worry anymore." So, that's the kind of the things that happen. And you don't think – he just asked me that, and I just gave him my honest opinion of what I thought the team was, because it was all – when we sat on the field, we held each other accountable. I mean, if you needed slapped upside the head for having a stupid holding penalty, you got chewed out. It wasn't by coach. It was by one of your teammates.
Yeah. Well, I think I probably worried about the games more than they did. They had so much confidence in themselves. I could be all uptight, in game, and they're like, "Coach, chill, we got this." And they had all the confidence in the world. I was talking about Mount Hope and being afraid that was going to be the end because they were so talented. I think Lance can probably tell you, I don't think that ever crossed their mind. They knew if they went and did what they were supposed to do, that we'd be fine.
Yeah, because I remember we was watching film. We watched Brilliant, and we saw how good they were. I mean, they were really, really good. But we were all just like, crap, we just got to worry about ourselves. We can't worry about, how good they are. We just have to worry about ourselves and do what we do best, and we'll be fine. And, that's kind of the way we looked at things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there any fond memories you have? I mean, winning that state championship, do a couple of things stand out that when you reflect back, it just immediately comes to mind? Both of you.
I wish, being a young coach, I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. I think at that age, I was a bit like they used to talk about Nick Saban. As soon as we won it, I was worried about the next year. And that, to me, I think I should have enjoyed them and enjoyed that state championship a little bit more. But, by Monday, I was already worried about the next year. When are we going to get in the weight? We're behind in the weight room. We played 15 games, that kind of thing. And, I'll tell you a funny story, though. We get home from the state championship, and I get in my house. I get home that night about 4:30 in the morning, literally, because we were so late getting it from Repton. Me and my wife are laying in bed on Saturday morning, and about 7 o'clock, the phone rings. And my wife answers it, hands the phone over to me. I'm about half awake. She says, "It's for you." And I answer the phone, and it's Weiss Radio. At 7 o'clock in the morning, they called us, and he didn't say, "Can we do an interview?" When I answered the phone, he says, "Coach, we've got you live on the air. Let's talk about the state championship." And I mean, he didn't ask for it, but he just, when he hands me the phone, and I've been in bed for like 3 hours, he says, "You're live on the air. Let's talk about the state championship." And I'll never forget that, because I don't know what I said, because I was just barely happy with it.
Yeah. What are some of your memories, Lance?
Oh, gosh. There's so many, it's hard to narrow down. Of course, I remember scoring a touchdown in the championship game. That was a big memory. But I actually remember before the game when the captains went out. And Tommy Dukes was a captain for Repton, and he was 6'7". And Jim Tom was one of our captains, and he's 5'5", and it was literally looked like David and Goliath. You know, I mean, it looked like the physical difference was so much, but we didn't back down at all. He stood right there and, you know, bowed his chest out. It was like, "Hey, we're here for business," you know, and definitely remember that. You know, remember the weight, just everything. It was just really hard to put into words, you know, specific plays and different things, but just one of those games that goes by, you know, it's just so quick, and then the next thing you know, there you are, and it's over, and you're just kind of at a loss for words, I guess.
A story about Lance. The dressing facilities there left a little bit to be desired, to say the least. We both dressed in a gym right across the road, and we used the same bathrooms. They had a dressing room. They were in the bathrooms. We were dressing out on the gym floor, and we were in the same bathroom. Our kids were going to use the bathroom in the same bathroom their players were in. Lance comes back to me and says, "Coach, we got him." I said, "What do you mean, Lance?" He said, "There's a couple of them in there smoking in the bathroom. We got them." And so, I mean,
I just felt like if they didn't take it no more seriously than that, you know, that we would probably be okay, because I knew how seriously we were taking it.
Yeah.
And we had to cross that road going into the stadium. And they had not been beat at home in years. And their people lined the road where we had to walk across the field, and would intentionally bump our kids as we walked between them to get to the stadium. And I know they saw that as we're intimidating them, but what it was doing was just motivating our kids more, because they didn't realize we had the type of kids. They wouldn't have backed down from the Russian army. They weren't going to back down from anybody. And so all it did was make our kids a little madder.
Yeah, it's always interesting. And one story I'll share with y'all, when we played over at Brilliant. You remember the year Miami and Boston College played in the game?
Yeah.
The day after Thanksgiving. Well, we played Brilliant on that day. We went over early, and we had 3 motel rooms. Well, one commode got stopped up, so they crammed us in. And of course, we were nuts, so crazy. And Coach King, I remember Steve King told us, he goes, "Phil, you're fixing to get your beat." And I said, maybe not, Coach. So, and it was wild. But and then the end of that football game, everybody was going nuts. So,
yeah.
But the thing is when we loaded on that bus, you could hear a pin drop. I mean, you could. I remember Carl Smith come on the bus, and he dropped the bag that had all equipment stuff in it, and everybody chewed him out for making noise. And so all the way, and we read signs all the way to the stadium when we went to Brilliant. And by the time we walked on that field, it was all business. I mean, it's amazing, you know, how that kind of thing, you know, seeing those signs, you know, that was kind of sort of poking fun at us and whatnot, you know, what's coming and all that stuff. But it's amazing how those things kind of happen. But y'all remember Buddy Tuxbury. I remember in the fourth quarter, they had the football, and it was 4th down. And they called their last time out, and Buddy come up the field. You remember that game today, that Miami Boston College? I said, "Buddy, don't worry about that crap. Go hit the quarterback." And I said, you know, because we don't want to get beat like that. So he did. He nailed the quarterback in the back and spun the ball, went out of bounds. Of course, that ended the football game. But it's so neat the way stories fall in line to win a state championship. And I'm not going to call it luck, because it's not luck. It's being in the right place at the right time. You're fortunate sometimes, but, you know, you work for that luck.
Well, you know, a lot of something that people don't think about is the state classified from 4 classes to 6 classes right about this time. We probably could never won a 1A championship with the number of teams that would have just been in 1A because, you're talking about a lot of those teams moved to 2A. And so it benefited us. And I'll tell you something else. We had a lot of people that people think this is crazy, had fall birthdays. We had a lot of 18-year-olds playing in the championship game instead of 17 and 16-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a big difference.
They were not holdbacks. They were just old seniors.
No, we just had a lot of fall birthdays.
Yeah. Well, a lot of ours now we had 12 seniors on my senior team. 9 were older. I was one of the babies. I was the age, but there was 9 of the 12 seniors were older. And I know exactly what you're talking about because that benefited us too because, Fife lost to Cortland my senior year, 27-7. And then 2 years later, Cortland's 1A, and they start beating the snot out of everybody.
Yeah.
I know when my brother played, they beat the snot out of Valley Head twice. I mean, big time.
We played Portland in the first round of the playoffs the year after we won the state championship.
Yeah.
They came over and played Cherokee County.
Yeah.
I want to say
they did.
Around that time
there
somewhere.
was a year there where Portland beat Cherokee County High School, Emma Sansom High School, and Oxford.
Yeah.
All in 1 year.
Yeah. I know.
They couldn't get anybody to play.
Yeah. During my brother's junior year, we went over to Cortland and Valley Head run the entire clock out the first quarter. 2 minutes to go first quarter, didn't get a first down at the 5-yard line. Next thing you know, pow, 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 it was 30-0.
Yeah.
It's just amazing that how good they really were. And
they had another year.
We didn't have to play that much.
We played them several times. Coach Waddle there and I became very good friends through the years because we had played them so much. Never beat him, but we had some pretty good ball games with him.
Well, guys, I'm going to let y'all get off here. I've enjoyed all the time. We could talk all night, I'm sure. But is there anything y'all want to add, give any shout-outs? I mean, we've enjoyed having y'all on. It's always good to take a look back. And, you can't live in the past, but it's always good to reminisce a little bit.
Well, it's like we thought anything like a state championship like that's always going to be part of your life. And, and it's always a part of the community. And, I appreciate Tanner Nelson this year. He came back this year and put a state championship sign up on the press box that, I had kind of felt like was missing the last few years when they did some stadium renovation that disappeared. And he came back and he put a sign up to recognize the state championship team. And he put a sign up to recognize the state runner-up team that I had later on. And to me, that's something that should always be there. That's just a thing of pride.
Well, I'll ask y'all both this. I mean, y'all have been around a while. You've kind of had your story. Both of you answer this, how do you want to be remembered?
That gets pretty deep.
Yeah.
Everybody
has a legacy. Everybody has a story. I want to know how do you want to end your legacy?
Well, as far as a football coach, just a guy that was a winner. I guess like Bear Bryant used to say, a winner. And I did a lot of things in my career. There again, kind of like Bear Bryant, if you go back to the Junction Boys show, and he did things he regretted. I did things I regretted. There was some guys I probably regret how I treated them through the years. And, but a lot of those guys as adults, we're good friends now. And so maybe I wasn't too bad, but, I would love to be able to go back and know what I know now, start it all over again. I really would.
Well, how do you want to be remembered as an individual, Coach?
Oh,
I didn't know you was going to ask questions like that.
Yeah.
Christian family man that, went to Sand Rock and nobody thought I would stay there, especially after we started winning. And we made it our home. And I love that community. And so I guess, I just want to be, now I'll be remembered as a Sand Rock guy.
What about you, Lance? How do you want to be remembered as an individual?
as a player, I want to be remembered as a good teammate. And as a person, I want to be remembered as someone who loved people and helped them when he could.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing at all. It's not a bad thing at all.
Well, it's like now you can still mention Lance Mackey and Sand Rock. Everybody says quarterback on the 85 team. He can do anything. That tag is going to always be there.
Yeah. Definitely so. And that, that's the kind of the things that are here. Like, Jeff Harrison, John Kirby, everybody remembers them because even their bloodlines have come through.
Well, same thing. Lance, both his boys played for me. One of them played tailback, was a really good running back for me. We would run him every ball game, almost every snap until he cramped up on us. And so there, that bloodline passed on down.
Yeah.
And piece of trivia: Lance's father-in-law, Donnie McMyers, was my junior high football coach, who I thought a lot of, growing up. And
well, Lance, after winning state championship, at the time, it really don't sink in a whole lot. But as time has gone on, has it become sweeter and sweeter, especially when you hear others talk about it?
Yeah, and I'm in the Cherokee County Hall of Fame, and I'm in there for one reason. I was on the state championship team. Period. So the quarterback gets a lot of those kind of accolades sometimes, just because of the position you play. But yeah, it is, and but it's been 40 years, and the people that talk about it now are grandparents and great grandparents. It's a different. Young people are not concerned about things that happened 40 years ago, and you have to kind of realize, that you're just another old guy out there, But yeah, it's sweet, and I like to see people that I played with and people that I played against, and talk about things. That, I work with a guy that played at Gainesville my senior year, and we talk about it every once in a while. And I see people occasionally. I'm Facebook friends with Tony Crane, who played over at Cedar Bluff, and we'll get together with him. Roy Mitchell does some of the sideline stuff, and I'll see folks, and I would with my kids, and I'll say those are people there that I played against in high school, and whatnot. So it's a fond memory. It's got a special place in your heart that I always will have.
Everything you said is exactly true. The one thing I think I enjoy the most, though, is being a part of that. I was part of it.
Right.
I had some significant things I did that helped us, win, but I was not, I was just a part of something special. But the one thing I enjoy about it is that when I do scoreboard and when I do things like, I know what these kids are going through. I've been there. I've done it. I know exactly how they feel. So I'm able to add a little insight into the playoff pictures and things like that. And that's where I step back and I go, I love it that I got to play in that because I can share that with others.
Yeah. I think people forget how hard it is to make someone else do something you don't want them to do physically. What it's blocking, tackling. I mean, I remember it's hard. I remember being, physically spent and just not thinking I had anything left. And I think I sit there and watch these games now and see kids and people are like, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? And I said, because it's a lot more difficult when you're 15 years old to do these things. And when you have the benefit of hindsight, sure, I would love to go back and have the nutrition and the weight program they have now and the type of offenses they run now. Oh my gosh. I mean, it would be a blast to be a quarterback right now,
Oh, definitely. You could have set all kind of school records. But I would rather have the W's.
That's right.
Naturally. Well, Coach, one thing I want to ask you: what was your take when you came to Valley Head? You come in between the hedges. You had the railroad train that was going to come through sometime. We never thought about those things, but we've heard other people talk about it. Was that a little bit intimidating?
No, it really wasn't. I'll just be honest with you. The stadiums didn't bother me. And I was too young to be intimidated then, I guess, too dumb or whatever. But I was so focused on my football team that I very rarely paid much attention to the surroundings.
Yeah.
Ball games would be over, and my wife or somebody would come in, boy, you got cussed out good from the bleachers tonight, didn't you? And I'm like, I didn't hear it. What they didn't realize was they could holler, they could be on the fence screaming at me, and my attention was so focused on the field and my football team that it never bothered me. And I might make note before the ball game of how big the crowd was, but outside of that, where I was at or anything like that, it never affected me.
Yeah. The only time I ever heard crowd noise out at 5, I got kneed in the side of the head, and I could hear the crowd. And because I reckon I had a concussion that night. That's the only time I ever heard the crowd. Any other time, I never heard it. But I've heard a lot of people say that that railroad coming through would shake them bleachers on the visitor side, and and I think it affected the fans more than it did anything else.
Yeah, that was different. The train coming by during the ball game was different.
Yeah, because the darn conductor lay down on it. I mean, he'd blow it as long as he could. So, well, guys, I sure do appreciate you having on. If you want to do y'all want to give any shout outs to anybody before we go off here?
No, it's just like I said, it was Sand Rock is a unique community, and we had so much support back in that day. And did all through my career. I always said, it was a middle class working community, but we didn't hurt for anything we needed to win football games. And a few years after we won state championship, built a field house that some small colleges would be proud of. And they came up with the money and the support to do whatever we needed, or usually whatever I asked for. And I guess that was a big reason I stayed there. Still live in that community. My kids went to school there, and my oldest daughter teaches there. She's the cheer coach there now. So we just became very embedded Sand Rock people, and so that's when I went to Sand Rock, I really had no intentions of staying there my whole career. I really did. I thought win some games, I'll move up later on, and it didn't happen. I just I couldn't find a better place to go.
Well, Coach, I guess you feel this way too. Is that after you retired from Sand Rock, you took a job where you're kind of involved with all the county schools in Cherokee County. Yeah. Have you kind of sort of taken all them under your wing?
Yeah, I'm a part of every school now. I really have. It's been an eye opener for me. I've got, I knew people from other schools, but now I've got friends at other schools, and I'm actually going to a play in Oxford in December with a group of teachers from Cedar Bluff. And, they knew I wanted to go, and they started to go get tickets, and the tickets were about to sell out. So they just went ahead and got me 2 tickets while they were getting theirs. And, things like that. So, I've become some coaches I was friends with that I'm now really good friends with, like Ricky Austin at Spring Garden and things like that. And so, it's when I retired and took this job, my wife said, "You're going to be miserable." And sometimes when I have to work at night and on weekends, I don't like that. But it's been a great experience for me.
Well, Lance, was the opportunity to maybe play athletics or play football at the next level, or did you just decide to go to a different career path? And what has been your career over the years?
I worked for AT&T for 37 years now. So I've been a lineman outside plant tech for 37 years with them. I went to college for a little while. I wish I would have tried to play it and stuck with it, but it's just there's so much that you don't know. I guess as a high school kid when you go to a college, especially from a small school, when you're a small place like Sand Rock, everybody knows you, everybody's concerned about you, and you get to a college, it's a whole different animal. And I was not prepared for that. I was not prepared to just be called a number, 12, 14, 18, just come, do this. And in hindsight, I wish I would have stuck it out. I don't know that I never could have played anywhere, but I don't have any regrets, none whatsoever. I'm happy with my career and the way everything's turned out.
Yeah, hey, I understand. I finished with a college degree, got a communications degree, but I still work in the work field. I sell potato chips because, that's amazing how you have a college degree and you make more out in the field working in the private sector than you do when you've got a college degree. So I kind of sort of stayed with that.
We laugh about that all the time. I go to work for a private company, and they paid me more my first year than I made my 37th year in education. And it's been an eye opener because I never worked in private business before, and it was just so different. And but at the same time, it's enabled me to stay in the school system and work and accomplish some things in our school system that have really helped money wise with our, it's afforded some money for our schools that they didn't have before.
Well, Coach, I know you was a career-long coach and you talk about things like that, but there's more to being a football coach and a teacher in that, you make a difference in young people's lives, but building relationships that last a lifetime is what's rewarding about being a teacher and a coach.
That is huge to me now since I've retired. And as I've gotten older, that I didn't realize when I was young. One of my most gratifying things I do now ever is to sit around a ball game and talk to a Lance Mackey or a Scotty Norris or a Jim Tom Simpson or somebody that I coached years before. We reminisce a little bit, and then we talk about their families and what they've done over the years. And players later on through the years that maybe were not stars and didn't play that much, but have been successful in just life with their families. And I love sitting around just talking to former players now, especially, those that have been successful, maybe those that have had some problems, and we've all got some of both. And so,
well, Lance,
and a lot of those guys will still talk very openly to me about what's going on in their life.
Yeah, and that's good. I mean, that's what every coach enjoys about it, as they get older. And a lot of them will tell you that in their younger days, like Steve King told me, he wished he would have enjoyed it more. He was so worried about winning, he forgot about.
Well, he was pretty intense. He was a pretty intense guy.
Yeah, definitely so. Well, Lance, over the years, have you taken a lot of the things you learned from Coach Jacoway and implemented it in your life?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the lessons you learn in sports, and the value of hard work, determination, and one of our, I guess you call mantra, my senior year was to have class and closeness. That was one of the things that we strove to do, was to be close as a group and to win with class. And, you think about those things and they stick with you. Yeah, they do. I apply things that I learned in sports to my job physically when I'm tired or stressed or whatever. And I still use a lot of those things. Yeah, sure do.
That thing works both ways. These guys don't realize how much I learned from them through the years. Mm-hmm. Just the never quit attitude and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I understand that. Well, guys, I'll let y'all get off here. I've enjoyed it. It's good to reminisce a little bit and get to know you guys a little bit more. Lance, this is the first time we've actually met. I've known of you for years, but the first time we've actually met. Maybe we'll meet in person at some point. But I enjoyed having y'all on, enjoyed the reminiscing a little bit, and y'all enjoy the rest of your evening.
I've got to go coach a third grade girls basketball team.
Okay.
I'm back coaching. I am back coaching again this year.
He's getting paid what he deserves this time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate all y'all do.
Hey, thank y'all very much. For Phil Harris, for Coach Rusty Jacoway, Lance Mackey, Howie, who was on earlier. Good night, everyone. God bless. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we want to especially thank Coach Jacoway and Lance for coming on with us. Maybe one of these days we'll meet up again.
We enjoy it.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.